let's first get down the arc of the characters. It's number one thing that should have been done. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director and editor, and today I'm going to be talking about the show The Bear. So The Bear season 3 just came out, and if you've followed this channel, you know I'm a huge fan of this series. I loved season 2. I thought it was one of the best seasons of television I've seen. I mean, I broke down just how masterful the editing in that show is. And I think that the editors and the writers and the actors in The Bear are all extremely talented. But I was very disappointed in season 3. Now, I give things that I like a lot of runway. You know, I was very excited. I was expecting season 3 to be great. And when it started, it was very different from what I was expecting. They were doing a lot of kind of experimental montage-y type editing in the beginning, in the first episode of the show. And, you know, that's not something that they were generally doing before, but I thought, you know what? These are talented people. They're experimenting. They're doing something creative. Now, there's an interesting part of this where the show itself, this season, is about how Carmy, the head chef, is experimenting and trying to find like what is greatness in his restaurant, and he's doing it in a way that is kind of a bit scatterbrained and lost and not focused. And a lot, for some people, they're like, wow, this is great. And for other people, they're like, I don't understand why you have to change the menu every single day. And that's what I feel like is kind of happening in the show. They're trying to change the menu, and they feel like they need to be great. They feel like they need to do something different because they're artists. They're great, very talented people. And that's what talented people do. They want to try to push boundaries. They want to try something new. That's kind of in their mindset. And I think with the show, very parallel to, you know, what they're writing this show about, what they're doing in the creation of the show is kind of trying to push these boundaries in a way that isn't really working. So I think it's kind of interesting because I do think that the struggle that the show is having, they're telling us about in the writing of the show, where they're like, we have this very successful show. It got very successful by being something that was straightforward, kind of a general storyline that was good, very good, but we want to kind of elevate this to a higher level, like an arty blah, blah, blah level, I guess. And in doing so, they kind of lost the core of what made the show so good. Now, I can get into a little bit more why I feel like that's the case. I think that the montaginess, the kind of jumping around in time that they were doing, all these things didn't allow us to have a focus. The thing that I think makes the show very good, or made the show very good in seasons 1 and 2, was that we were focusing on character first and foremost, and we were focusing on creating a very propelling storyline in a way that was very emotionally evocative. So basically what I think happened in season 3 is that they kind of lost sight of that. They're trying to do all these other things, and we're losing the character threads. You know, I don't know what the arc of a lot of the people in the show is. I don't feel the conflict from episode to episode. Now for this season, kind of the main conflict is Carmy is kind of struggling with creating something that people really like. And Sydney is kind of struggling with whether or not she wants to stay here because she feels like Carmy is not treating her with respect. You know, there are these kinds of conflict things, but what I'm telling you, they are not fleshed out in a way that is satisfying. You know, episode to episode, we kind of get hints of these things, but there's not a through line that we can follow where we think like, okay, I understand like how this relationship is developing. I feel like the struggles that Sydney is having at the beginning of the season are the same that she has at the end. And there's no resolution. There's a lot of scenes with her and Carmy where she's kind of holding in her opinion, but there's never any kind of idea of like, okay, this is coming to a head. Carmy is struggling the whole season with figuring out how he's going to make the restaurant good, and that never changes. There's no kind of actually him reckoning with it. He's just kind of spinning his wheels throughout this whole season. Every character, I feel like, in this season is spinning their wheels. And I also gotta say, I find it extremely insulting when shows end on like cliffhangers that are wholly unsatisfying. Like the end of this show was one of the worst last episodes of a season that I can remember. I mean, I was so upset by what they did because the whole time they're kind of building it up and they're trying to establish all of these conflicts that maybe will come, right? They're not doing the best job, but they're establishing these conflicts that maybe will come. And the last episode of this season was a bunch of characters who we don't know, who aren't our primary characters, talking about the restaurant business and how rewarding it is or how difficult it can be in this kind of world. I am not connected to that. I don't care. I don't watch this show because I'm a chef and I want to hear people talking about the restaurant business. I watch this show because the restaurant business is high drama. There's a lot of conflict that can occur, and those themes and ideas can be related to broader themes about life and about art and other things in general. They're trying to do that, but they're not doing that because they're not using our primary characters who we actually care about. They're using some other chefs that I don't know who they are. And it's a long thing, and they're talking a lot about these ideas. Then they have this character who is the head chef of the restaurant that we had a great cameo in season 2, had a very meaningful thing, and I think they cheapen that whole great episode of season 2, the Every Second Counts episode, which I talked about before. They cheapen it by trying to call back to it and be like, hey, remember that this is significant? Remember how like every second counts, blah, blah, blah. Like this is a significant thing we did, remember that? And they don't earn that. They don't earn that because in this episode, they're not showing us how it's significant. They're just telling us that they did that before. And that's cheap. All right. And then we go back to another great moment from season 1 with this bad boss that Carmy had that really affected his character and made him the way he was. And they show a lot of clips from that and flashbacks to that, but they don't have a build up to that in a satisfying way. They just call back to it. So they're trying to use the emotional capital that they got from seasons 1 and 2, and they're trying to use it in an episode that it itself is not correctly contributing to that emotional capital. They're just giving us little scenes in a bunch of fluff, in a bunch of people talking about nonsense. Not nonsense, but talking about, fine dining and how difficult it is to be a chef. They slot this into that episode in a way that's not satisfying. And then they cap it off. I can even forgive all of this, but they cap it off with cutting out by not showing us the review that he got for his restaurant. So we don't know what the inevitable kind of conclusion is. We're sort of led to believe that it was a bad review. We're assuming that it's bad, but they don't show us that it's bad. And then what's going to happen in the aftermath, we're going to see that in season 4, I guess. But it's just, so you'd lead us up to all this stuff, and then you don't give us the review. What I think this is a classic case of them trying to pad out a storyline and trying to stretch out their run, which is understandable because everybody wants to keep their job, right? They want to make this show go on as long as possible. But do that by creating the kind of content that you gave us in season 1 and 2. Create these conflicts. Show us the review. Lead us to see the aftermath of the review. Give us real conflicts, real things, instead of stringing along this one kind of issue and then letting it hang on a cliff. And for us to even see kind of any kind of emotional change, emotional arc, kind of anything worthwhile, we gotta wait till next season. I mean, this is the thing that content is doing, where it's making us wait for something when we could just get it. It'd be like you go to the sandwich shop, you order the sandwich, and they say, okay, come back tomorrow and we'll give it to you. As you can tell, I'm pretty upset about it. Now, there were a couple good episodes in this season, a couple very good episodes actually. I really loved the episode entitled Napkins, which was about job search, and that one connected to me personally. And it connected to me personally, I believe, because we had all those things. We had a emotional arc, we had character development, all in one episode, really. It was more like a short film that didn't really fit into the season because it was a flashback to prior to any of this happening. But we really got a whole kind of narrative arc and change in this character where she had a job, she lost her job, she's going on this very taxing journey searching for this job, and then she has this experience that changes her perspective and kind of changes the trajectory of her life. Now that was fantastic. And that scene where they're discussing like how hard it is, how hard working life is, how hard it is to run a business, how hard it is to, maintain your sanity when your financial situation is unclear. That's all great stuff. It's themes all connected to life that people are experiencing now in the world. And I think that was a great thing to create. So I loved that episode. I also really loved the episode when with Jamie Lee Curtis, with the baby and the mom, because that was something where we really got, a serious scene that wasn't cut into montage. It was straightforward. It was two people having a conversation, edited and acted very well, even though it's straightforward. I think there's all this fluff in season 3 of The Bear. There's all of this experimenting with form and trying to do things and trying to push boundaries without the substance that we need. We need to have the basic emotional resonance in order for any of that fluff to matter. That's my opinion. You can have the fluff, and the fluff can be great, but if you don't have the emotional resonance at the core, then it doesn't. I don't care. So let's first get down the arc of the characters. That's number one thing that should have been done, and I don't think it was done. And I think because it wasn't done, a lot of experimenting and a lot of trying to fix it with kind of interesting editing style and a lot of legitimately fun, cool scenes, but it doesn't go anywhere if there's nothing that you can sink your teeth into to follow. I don't know why I need to follow these montage scenes if I'm not getting new information. Now, something that somebody commented to me that I thought was very true was that this whole season felt like the anime flashback episodes that would happen when, it's just like showing us all the things that happened in the past and hey, remember this character, remember these scenes, remember blah, blah, blah. And they repeated clips so much. I don't know how many times I saw the same clip of him getting yelled at in the restaurant. I don't know how many times I saw the same clip of him talking to Mike about opening a restaurant together. And we get a little bit out of that by seeing that again, but 4 or 5 times throughout the season. I just think overall, very disappointing. And I will also say this, is that I do hold this show to a higher standard than I would other shows. I have been less upset if I didn't expect that this was going to be great. I don't know, maybe. Also, I might not have given it as much of a chance if I didn't expect it was going to be great. So I think there's a little bit of both of those things going on. And I just think that it was disappointing. And I really hope that for season 4, which I will watch because like I said, I give things that I like a lot of runway. I will watch season 4. I just hope that they get back to the basics of storytelling, the basics of scene construction, the basics of character development that they were so good at. I mean, better than anybody on TV, in my opinion, for the past 2 seasons. And they just kind of opted to go a different direction, and I don't think it worked. Anyway, let me know what you think. Did you like season 3 of The Bear? Were you disappointed like me? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys later.